It's Kate Floss. Today I'm going to be sitting, what I wanted to do is an SOS to Australia, Scotland, Ireland, England, and we're over here from New Zealand. And what a lot of people are not realising is that all of our history in the time, between the time of studying in England, from the time of the year 1000, and then specifically in the time of 1688, when the 1688 Bill of Rights was created, where the Majesty and the religious leaders were put into restriction by the people. And there were certain rules that they had to follow. Now, part of that 1688 had the system, the way that we can remove government, the way that we can remove even religious leaders or even the Majesty herself if we needed to. And it's all in there. Well, this was all tied up with the Commonwealth. And then in around about 1717, about 1780 or something like that, a group of religious people broke off from that, and they started traveling around the world to all of the countries of America, Canada, New Zealand, Australia, South Africa, and India, and all of those, taking their religious text with them and buying up all the lands and causing all of this chaos. And then what had happened was the British had stepped in and put many of these countries under their protections. What a lot of people are not realising, everybody knows that this corporation apparently began around about, it had been planned since, it all had been planned since 1840. Now, in England and Scotland and Ireland and Australia, you're probably not realising how important New Zealand is to the Commonwealth, because even though we had our 1688 Bill of Rights and our constitutions that protected all of us, and protected our lands, the natives around the world didn't have that. And all of these missionaries, the Catholics, the Jehovah's Witness, and various other, the French king, had all turned up in these various countries and set about to buy up all the lands from the very naive natives of the country. Well, what had happened is when England got wind of all of this, they went to New Zealand and created protections for the New Zealand. They were called Aboriginals, New Zealand Aboriginals. They were called the New Zealanders, or Aboriginals. They're called Maori now because they're all had become half caste, but originally they were Aboriginals also. And there were documents signed in New Zealand that had an effect on all the natives in every single one of our Commonwealth countries. And then our New Zealand Maori had sacrificed their language and they basically, in my opinion, sacrificed themselves so that all of the other natives in the other countries would have safety and protections under the Majesty in the 1688 Bill of Rights. And so what we're looking at, we know that in 1975 in New Zealand, some higher up natives had gone to the United Nations and gone to the Queen, and I think had removed their subject status, and that removed them from the protections of the 1688. And they started removing all our laws. Now, I'm going to skip a lot of that. We'll come back to it later. But in 1986, Australia lost their 1901 Constitution of the Commonwealth. And in 1986, New Zealand lost their 1852 Constitution of the Commonwealth. And the same thing happened in Canada. And what is important about this is that Canada and Australia both put in very good protections in their new constitution. But strangely enough, New Zealand and England and Israel have not put in, they all put in unwritten constitution. Now, what the hell is an unwritten constitution? An unwritten constitution is basically no constitution. That's what it is. And all it says is that the 1852 constitution is no longer in use in our countries. Now, what a lot of people don't realise about the New Zealand Maori is that in 1865, when they went to the court and asked the Majesty to be made subjects, Her Majesty literally adopted them. They were adopted just like any other adoption in any other with families. And they were called natural born subjects, right along with all Scottish, Irish, and English people. And this is what makes them very unique to the Australian Aboriginals and the Canadians and the American Indians and all of those. The New Zealand Maori are the only ones that did this. And when they did that, so when all of our people from England and Germany and all of that, when they all went out into the world, they brought with them their 1688 protections. And so they were always protected under the common law that was a written form of common law. But when the New Zealand Maori were adopted by the Majesty, all natives in all of the Commonwealth countries went under them. And so New Zealand, Australia, England, Scotland, Ireland, you've all got to be looking to what happened in New Zealand so that you're going to know what is happening in your countries, because we are so intricately connected together, and we're like umbilical cords, our countries, together. And when one umbilical cord is cut, it affects all of the other umbilical cords. And the place where these globalists have focused is on our New Zealand natives, and they have caused mayhem and havoc, absolute havoc. So today we're going to go back to 1835, and we're going to look at the Declaration of Independence, which was created by Busby. Sorry, I haven't introduced Kim. This is Kim, do you want to say something? Can you remember what this Busby's, James Busby, is it?
Yes, it was James Busby. Hi, everyone. My name's Kim. I'm a troubleshooter and a problem solver, and I've asked Kate if she could clarify what happened with the He Whakaputanga Treaty as to how we got to the position that we're in now, because there are two and there have been changes made, and I'm really excited to hear what these changes are. So we're starting right at the beginning from where my understanding is that it was James Busby who was an influence in the negotiation side with Hone Hika, who of course is Ngāpuhi. And with that, I'll give it back to you, Kate.
That's exactly right. But we're not going to go into all the details about how all this happened. All we're going to show today is the changes that they made in around about 1975. Now, what I can just say is no, I won't say that. But all I can say is we're going to show these changes, and everybody's talking about how did this corporation begin? How did this American, this Queen in right of Australia, this Queen in right of New Zealand, and England is involved in all this, because we know England also removed their constitution, because what England don't realise is that their constitution was tied up in our New Zealand 1852 constitution. Our constitutions were bound together. There's some kind of thing going on between our two countries. I haven't figured it all out yet, but we are very interconnected. And so I'm going to show you how this corporation came to be. All right, so what you can do is, now, Kim, are you able to open your Google while you're talking to me?
I can.
All right, so we're going to open up two screens. All right, and you go to the first screen, and I want you to type. You can just type, you can either type, the Maoris, to all of you people that are not from New Zealand, the Maoris call it the whakaputanga, all right? And so, but it's called in English the Declaration of Independence. Now,
and you're doing that under the New Zealand History Government site, aren't you?
no, that's the one that you don't want to go to. If you scroll down, so I'll just explain to everybody, when you type in the Declaration of Independence or you type on the whakaputanga, the first thing that comes up is He Whakaputanga Declaration of Independence, and everybody goes to that site, but don't go to that site because it doesn't have all the versions and it has changed vocabulary.
Sorry, Kate, you also have a declaration, He Whakaputanga He Tohu, which is the first one above the one you've just said.
Really?
Yeah, that one is done by the National Library Government.
I'll just have a look at that.
Yeah, so it's a declaration, He Whakaputanga He Tohu, as in H-E, new word, T-O-H-U.
Right. I'm okay. Well, anyway, I'm not. There's a lot of information on there that I dispute, okay. So I won't go to there. But the one that I go to is archives. If you scroll down, and you go to archives,
okay.
Can you see archives down there? And when you open it,
I haven't got it on here. Hang on a minute. I'm just gonna. Okay, right. I found it.
Yeah, click on that, and you'll see all of the purple.
Yes.
Yes, and it will say original Te Reo version and the English translation. And then I want you to unconnect that from your Google, and then I want you to go and open it, the same thing up again, a second time.
Yeah.
So we'll put them side by side.
Got it.
All right, and then on one of them, I'm going to do mine on the left-hand side. I'm going to click original English version, and scroll that up, and you'll be able to see it all there. And then on the right-hand side, I'm going to click Te Reo version and the translation.
Okay, hang on a minute. Just let me get this off so I can have two up like you.
Yeah.
And then we can do that way. Okay.
Right, do you need me to share my screen or not?
Yeah, you can share your screen and we'll just follow you, so that way it'll be good for everybody else to see what you're doing.
They can see because I'm on record.
Okay, yep, no, that's fine, then carry on.
But anyway, I'll do that because then everyone won't be, oh, I can't do that. Oh, damn, what have I done? I'll see if that looks all right or not. Oh, no, I've done something. Unshare it. No, I don't think I will.
No, I don't think you can.
All right. All right, I'll just leave it so it's not necessary for me to do that. Right, okay, so what you'll see here is the one on the right was approved by UNESCO. And the people that did this were two people, a man called Manuka Hanari, who was, actually you should know about him, he was the director of the Catholic Church. So that is important. And the other man that translated these was Hugh Kafaru, and he was the director of UNESCO. And they translated both our treaty and our whakaputanga. Now, whenever you go to the court, they will tell you that I'll say Declaration of Independence for foreigners if they're looking. When they go to the court, they will say the Declaration of Independence is irrelevant, and they will say it's not accepted as a legal document because it was superseded by the Majesty when the Majesty came in. But the fact of the matter is that New Zealand Maori are going to the court and they are using the Declaration of Independence to win their court cases. And the fact of the matter is that it suddenly appeared between 1975 and 1986, where it had never been appeared before. So it just kind of appeared in a puff of wind, where previously it had been hidden. And the fact of the matter is that the United Nations, who have put our New Zealand Maori, and in fact all Indigenous people from Canada, New Zealand, Australia, have been placed under the care of the United Nations with the Indigenous rights, along with 370 million refugees. And they've tagged them on to the New Zealand, not only to the Commonwealth, they've tagged them on to the Commonwealth natives. And in New Zealand, they've divided up all of our country and put it in the hands of individual tribes. And once our country has parts, our resources are placed in the hands of individual tribes, they are then going along and negotiating it and selling it off to America. And the only way that they were able to do that was here, where they have changed our Declaration of Independence. So we'll go to I've got the Te Reo version open. Open that. Right. And so I'll show you here how this, so it says here, the translation by Manuka Hanari. And if you look on number 1, this was written by Busby. And if you look on number 1, what it says is, I'll put that up so you can see me better. It says, we the hereditary chiefs and heads of tribes. And this is very important because hereditary means that these chiefs must be born to New Zealand. If you look over on Manuka Hanari's version, it says, we the absolute leaders of the tribes. And it has removed hereditary and it has removed heads of tribes. Now, this is why what has happened in New Zealand is that they're saying the very high up leaders are not allowing the lower down leaders to have any say in the sale of all these properties and things. And none of the tribes are getting any of the money and funding that is being given in the billions of dollars. Billions of dollars have been handed, and yet most of our New Zealand Maoris are living very poor and destitute lives while their leaders are keeping all of the money and everything there. Now,
so can I just interject there, just
yes,
to get a little bit of clarity?
Yes.
So in New Zealand, there are 7 to 8 tribes, let's say there's 7 to 8 tribes, and each of those tribes has a chief leader. And within those tribes, there are other little tribes made up with leaders as well. They're the ones that have been eliminated. That's what you're saying?
Yes.
Thank you.
So hereditary chiefs is the paramount chiefs. So a tribe such as Ngāpuhi is a huge, it's like a country with many states. It's a huge.
So you've got. So Kate, what you're saying is you've got Ngāpuhi, who are a head tribe.
Yes.
Then you've got Tainui, who are a head tribe with King Tahitia.
Yes.
Then you had Ngāti Tūwhare Toa, for example, who were led by Sir Hippy Tuhiuhiu, and now it's by his son. So that's how you identify the 3 chief leaders of those iwi.
But of the Ngāpuhi, there are many, many smaller tribes that have different names, right?
Yes.
They have different names, but they all come under the umbrella of Ngāpuhi, but they are in fact many, many individual tribes that have split but remain part of the overall conglomerate, but have their individual tribal autonomy within their few people. Is that right?
Yes.
And so they are called heads. Well, in the original English version, it included hereditary chiefs and the heads of tribes were to be in power. But whereas in the translation, they've removed that, and they've just
By
put
Manuka Henry, who removed it.
by Manuka Hanari, the Catholic director of the Catholic Church. He removed it, and he called it the absolute leaders of the tribes, called iwi. So that is significant. And using absolute leaders, he had removed that the leader had to be born to New Zealand. So that could now be anyone. Second, I'll go to the main points, and then we can come back up and have a look again at some other fine points just to show you. But another main point, if you look on section 2, it says, in section 2, it says all sovereign power and authority within the territories of the United Tribes of New Zealand. Now, this is key. It says within the territories. Now, these territories only applied to certain parts of the North Island. Is that right, Kim?
I believe so.
Yeah.
I'm really not completely 100% certain. That's why this is really valuable, that we find out, the comparison between the Declaration of Independence that was originally written and the one that has been amended by Dr. Manuka Henari.
Well, we will look at area. Okay, yes, good. But I'll do it. I've done it wrong. We'll look at area in a minute, but we'll just focus on the names use. So he said it's hereby declared to their power hereby declared to reside entirely and exclusively in the hereditary chiefs and heads of tribes. So he's mentioned that in section 1, and he's mentioned that in section 2, and then he's put in their collective capacity. Yes. But over here in Hanari's version, he says the mana from the land of the Confederation of New Zealand. He's put the sovereignty and kingship and the mana from the land of the Confederation are hereby declared to belong solely to the true leaders. So he's removed...
eliminating heads of tribes.
And hereditary chiefs too.
Yes.
The key point is hereditary chiefs, because the key point is that the chiefs, by his translation, they don't need to be born to New Zealand. And that is very significant, because a piece of New Zealand, as you know, a piece of New Zealand was in I can't remember exactly the date, was split off from New Zealand and handed to one specific people called Nui Akiwa, which we're not doing that today.
No.
And so this, when it says sovereignty and kingship, that could be any person of Maori descent, but they don't even have to be living in New Zealand. So there could be someone living in Samoa, for all we know. Whereas hereditary means they must be born to New Zealand. And they must have inherited from an original chief. So this doesn't say that it has to be inherited from an original chief. So that means that it could be anyone. It can be someone appointed. So that is very important. Now, if you go to the third part, it says hereditary chiefs again on the left. Hereditary chief and heads of tribes. And on Hanari's version, it says, we the true leaders. So that is a key point. Now, I want everybody to realise, everybody says that this Declaration of Independence is nothing to do with the New Zealand Anglo people. And I'm here to tell you that it is everything to do with the New Zealand people. The first three pieces, you will notice that it says we, and the second piece says the, but the third piece says we again. But when you notice on the declaration in the Busby version, I call it the Busby version and the Hanari version. And the Busby version, in the fourth part, it says they. So that means that the first three pieces were created together with the hereditary chiefs and the heads. But the fourth piece was written by Busby for us, Anglo people. But you see on Hanari's, he's changed they for we. Now, this is very significant because on here, I'll just show you on the Busby version, he has said, we will send a copy of this declaration to His Majesty the King. Now, he didn't say that he's sending it to the King for the King's approval, as they're trying to make out. It says, we will send a copy to thank him for his acknowledgement of their flag. So this is very different, and this looks like it was added on later. And I think that this was an act of trickery on the part of Busby. And so the king did not acknowledge, the king did not stamp and seal this Declaration of Independence. It was a setup by the missionaries that had created a corporation in New Zealand, of which the Majesty eventually came and took away from them. So, but what is important here is he said, and in return for the friendship and protection they have shown and are prepared to show to such of his subjects as have settled in their country. Now, this is the first time that the word subjects has been acknowledged, and it shows that the New Zealand natives, the native Aboriginals, that they did know what the word subject meant, and they did know that the Anglo people were to be treated according to their subject status and their common law right of no cruel punishments and allowed to have a certain amount of governance in the country. And the subject status was, in this piece, acknowledged that the tribal leaders upheld that and protected the Anglo people in their country using this style. And Manuka Hanari has changed that word to be Pākehā. Now, this is a very important change because they're trying to presently say that Pākehā are all foreigners that come to New Zealand to live, both present day and both previous day. But clearly in the Declaration of Independence, their agreement was with people of subject status from England and Ireland and Scotland and Europe. So this is a key change that Manuka Hanari made here. Do you have anything to say about that?
I'm just like, the first thing that is coming to my mind right now is that a document, a sacred document created right back in the 1800s can so easily be manipulated in the 1900s, in 1976 through to 1986, somewhere wherever Dr. Manuka Hanari did. I know he did this, within the last 2 decades because he's since passed, but the fact that this is being changed and altered and not being challenged or questioned, it just is blowing my mind. So you're saying that he's taken the word subject that we the natives fell under for the protection of and changed it to the word Pākehā. So now anyone outside of our country, in past and in future, have right to lay claim. Is that what you're saying?
I am, and I'm not only saying that, Kim, I'm saying that it's affecting the entire Commonwealth. They're
Well, you
bringing,
can see how it's affecting it because the Commonwealth is New Zealand, UK, Australia, Ireland.
and
So if
Scotland.
it falls on us, and Scotland, and if it falls on us, and they've culled us this way, then that means they've culled every single one of those other countries' natives as well.
I'm
Because
trying to
like you
show
said
everybody's
before,
going down because of you, and I'm not saying blaming you,
no,
but everybody's going down because we're so there. See, all of the Anglo people.
We are the uterus, and the
Yes,
umbilical cord
yes.
are the other countries. That's what people. I didn't even understand that until you just said that. That's why I'm a little bit dazed. It's like, are you serious?
No, but and then you can see here because look, it says they entreat, they entreat, they entreat. So they enter a treaty that he will, meaning the Majesty, continue to be the parent of our infant state. So, and whereas Manuka Hanari has said, since we are showing friendship and care to the Pākehā, means foreigners, to live on our shores, we have come here to trade, and we ask the king to remain as a protector for us in our inexperienced statehood. But that is very different because on the Busby version, they said, we entreat, we make a treaty that he will continue to be the parent. Now that is very different of their infant state, and they did actually later go on to be properly adopted by Queen Victoria. They actually were, it wouldn't have been that Queen Elizabeth actually adopted them. And so I'm saying that the original Declaration of Independence shows that we were already functioning together as a people together at that time. But anyway, let's just, and you'll see here where it says the signatures, and it says the 35 marks of hereditary chiefs or heads of tribes. And that piece, this is what you'll notice. It just says, we the Rangatira, although we did not attend the meeting due to the flooding, fully agree with He Whakaputanga. But it doesn't say that here.
That's the codicil you're talking about. So
that the codicil is added by Hanari, and it's not on the original version.
Yeah, so he's implanted the codicil, which is in direct conflict to what's on the original document.
And he also removed 35 hereditary chiefs or tribes. That's been removed. And he's also removed the witnesses, the English witnesses of Henry Williams. So, and then he's removed, I certify the above as a correct copy of the declarations of the chiefs, according to the translation of the missionaries who have resided 10 years and upwards, and it is transmitted to His Most Gracious Majesty the King of England at the unanimous request of the chiefs, and then signed by Busby. All that's been removed. So
literally it's taken out a whole paragraph of the most important parts of He Whakaputanga as to how it originated. He's removed 35 hereditary chiefs, heads of tribes.
Yes.
He's taken out the signatories, Henry Williams, George Clark, James Glendon, Gilbert Meyer, and he's also taken out what was agreed to certify true and correctness of that declaration of those chiefs.
Yes.
And it was a unanimous request of the chiefs.
Yes.
And what he's literally done is one broad stroke of blank rubbing out, erasing of history to put a codicil in that says we are the rangatira who, although we did not attend the meeting due to the widespread flooding or other reasons, fully agree with He Whakaputanga Rangatiratanga or Nu Tarini and join the sacred confederation.
Yes.
So he's just made up his interpretation.
He's just made it up.
Overviewed it and then short formed it into a 1 and a bit sentence.
And
wiping out history. How can that happen?
And I think in my conspiracy theory, I think that there are new signatories to his version. I think that they are, those signatories are hidden from you.
So we need to, like for me, for example, because I am that person, like I said, I'm a troubleshooter and a problem solver. So in my role in those positions is to seek out truth, to find the answers. So now, it would be in my best interest if I'm following up on this lesson that you're giving today, to go and hunt out the signatories.
That's what I'd be hunting out. Who the signatories are, yeah.
Who are the original signatories? Because with that information, you can then marry it up with what he's actually taken out. You can actually find out who the 35 hereditary chiefs or heads of tribes are who have been eliminated from the updated He Whakaputanga version.
But it's not only that. The important thing is that this translation was used in the Waitangi Tribunal during the times when they removed, near the time when they removed our constitution. They used this translation. They didn't use the Busby version. They used the Hanari version. And it is the Hanari version that is also being used in court cases. But
so you're saying the Treaty of Waitangi, Kate?
No, we're not on. No, we're only on this one. The Treaty of Waitangi is another.
What was it that you were saying about the He Whakaputanga? When they Hanari version was used.
When they opened the treaty of, when they opened Waitangi Tribunal, where they were giving all these lands back, and they were giving back all. See, in New Zealand, they took all our resources, our water resources, our forestries, our fisheries. They divided them up and they handed them over to individual tribes ownership. And then what they did is they negotiated putting those resources into the corporation, which is the Queen and Right of New Zealand. That's where they've been putting it all, setting it up all in there. And so
they've been setting it up under the He Whakaputanga Hanari version.
Yes, it was all done. It had to have been done through that because, all right, I'll show you some more key pieces. One of the things.
Can I just ask a question?
Yes.
So, because my head is spinning right now. I'm just thinking, okay, so I'm just going to say it the way you've been saying it. We have two He Whakaputanga treaties. We have the Busby original, and we have the new updated Hanari version.
Well, there are three because you've got this Maori language version.
Mm-hmm.
You've got the Maori language, and then you've got, Busby, what he says there. He says that I certify that the above is a correct copy of the Declaration of the Chiefs, according to the translation of the missionaries. And so that means that the missionaries had the Maori version, and then they translated from there. And then,
so that's where we get. Okay, so this is kind of a little bit like if we liken this to the Bible. It's a watered down interpretation. So originally we had the Māori version of He Whakaputanga.
Yes.
That then became translated by Busby.
Yes.
Through missionary.
Right.
Who then, when it was then translated again by Hanari.
Yes, But some of the important things to remember are that this Declaration of Independence was never seen until apparently the Maori king. It just appeared in the hands. I've heard two stories. The first story is that a bunch of Maori were sitting in a lawyer's office over something that they were negotiating, and they looked down at the table, and there was the original whakaputanga sat there on the table, and then they picked it up and translated. I've heard that. The other one is someone went to fight against a court case that they had been prosecuted, and the Maori king suddenly produced this whakaputanga, and the person did not get prosecuted. But previous to 1975, it was not even known to be in existence. Well, they knew that it had occurred, but there were no versions in existence. So it has just suddenly appeared. We really don't even know if any of the versions or any of the papers are fake or not. It's never been even tested. But all of the transfer of properties and the transfer of New Zealand to the corporation has occurred due to these activities. So I want to just show you, I got a bit lost there, Kim, what were we talking about?
We were talking about the translation of the original through to Busby, through to Henare. And we were talking about the 35 signatories that have been taken off.
Yes.
And the tribal land returns. That's where you believe that they've been using the he whakaputanga of the Henare version for the negotiations of the Waitangi Tribunal land returns.
And the one of the really main points is that many of our New Zealand Maori are saying, hey, we haven't received a penny of this. We've all been thrown off of our trusts, and we've got New Zealand Maoris that are on their land, and they've got all these strangers going onto their lands and kicking them off their lands and telling them to get out, and they don't know who they are and they don't know what's going on. And I'm just saying that we don't actually know who are the people the true people that have received all of these resources. So because the hereditary chiefs has been removed and replaced with absolute leaders.
And because it's Pākehā on the he whakaputanga.
Yes, very bad. Well, it's important because if you have the word subjects, it means that the New Zealand Maori are under protections because of that word subjects from us. I just want to tell you something here. It's probably going to be a long video, but we'll just let it go. We don't mind, do we, Kim?
No, it's okay.
Now what was I going to say? The
subject of the reason that the importance of the subjects being replaced with the word Pākehā is because the subjects have the status, they have to be born, don't they, of New Zealand, isn't it? Something like that?
Yeah.
Whereas if you're Pākehā, you can be past and present regardless of where you're from.
Yes, that is one important thing. And here, that's what I wanted to tell you. I'll tell it for the viewers, pre-1840, starting from around 1835, all of the lands were bought by the missionaries. A lot of people don't know why were the 54 countries allowed to have all of these subject people go to their lands and help them to build their countries, because they weren't able to set up governments and they weren't able to construct their countries. And why were the subjects permitted to go and do that? Well, the reason is now European doesn't mean what you think it means. I always thought that European meant white people that come from Europe, but it's not actually true. All Europeans are put under this subject law, and the subject law that they are all under is that they are not permitted to buy pure land title. And so they're not even allowed to be gifted pure land title. And all of the natives in Canada, Australia, the islands, everywhere you look, they all owned pure title because they were the sovereign people and it was their country. They owned it all. And so when the missionaries went to all these places, it is just kind of lucky. They all were of European birth. It didn't matter which it wasn't really to do with that they were white. They just happened to be white, but they could have been of a Chinese descent, or they could have been black or whoever. But if they were born in any of the European countries or England or any of those countries, they came under this subject status, which forbid them to buy pure title land. And when they went to these countries, they bought up the pure title land, and the Majesty stepped in and said, hey, you're not allowed to buy pure title land. What they have to do is, if they negotiate with the chief, right, that they want to buy this piece of land, because everybody has a right to sell their land. But what if they were of subject status, they had to go to, if they were from France, they had to ask the French king. If they were from England, they had to ask the English queen. And then there was the Pope as well. They had to go through the Pope. He was another one. There were some different ones. But what you had to do is you had to go to them and you had to say, hey, this chief wants to sell this bit of land. And then the Queen would buy it in its pure title. The Queen would give back a paper title. And then, so that land always remained, even though the chiefs had sold it. If the chiefs in a future date wanted to go back and claim that pure title, the paper title that was sold, that's guaranteed. That's in perpetuity forever. But if the Majesty knew that the native wanted to get their pure title back, then they would have to wait for the person that held the paper title. Then the paper title would sell it back to the Majesty, and the Majesty would give it back to the native people through that. But most times, pure title is not permitted to be given back. Pure title is not permitted to be given back to an individual because it belongs to all the people of the country. So some of it can and some of it can't. There's some things, and I don't know what it's about. But these missionaries, that's the reason why the Queen was permitted to confiscate all of their land. But that's why it's significant that the Declaration of Independence has the word subject, because when they change it to the word Pākehā, that means that, so Americans are no longer subjects. They have renounced their subject status. So Americans are allowed to buy your land in its pure title, and you'll never get it back. Asians are allowed to buy your land in its pure title. Jewish people are allowed to buy your lands in pure title, and so are Islamic people allowed to buy your lands in pure title. The only people that are not allowed to buy your lands in pure title are people of subject status. So that is why the people of subject status were permitted. There's no such thing of it was a white invasion. This is just why they were allowed to come and buy your land, because they were only allowed to buy it in a paper title, and also why they were permitted to come and build the infrastructure. So that's why all that happened. Kim, do you have any questions?
Okay, so yeah, I do. Okay, so can you just clarify again, just to get it clear? Subject status gives the subjects of New Zealand pure title of land.
No.
No?
subject status forbids
Yep.
subjects from buying native pure title.
Forbids subjects from buying native title.
They can only buy it in the paper title.
Oh, that's right, yes. Buying paper title. Yes, and then once they buy paper, how they go about buying a paper title is they actually have to go, in our case, to the Queen and say,
Yes.
you know, I want this piece of land. They are happy to, you know, I want to sell this piece of land to this person. And then she gives them a paper title that they hold on to that is guaranteed, legal bounding perpetuity forever.
Yeah.
And if somewhere in that stage of ownership, they decide they want to give it back to the natives,
Yeah.
then have to return back to the Queen, who then buys it off them and returns it back. Is that correct? So she's like the go-between between the natives and the subjects.
Yeah, and this protects your country from other countries coming in and negotiating with individual chiefs, which they've done now, to buy up your land in pure title, and you lose your country and you go under the United Nations as a landless people.
So what you're saying, Kate, is right now, New Zealand, is this what you're saying? I should say, rather than say what you're saying. I'm asking the question. Are you saying right now we have people, foreigners, outside of our country with no connection, as in subject connection, who are not, as a subject, we have to be of the land, born to New Zealand, that we're losing our land, our pure title land, to foreigners right now?
Well, they're trying to get the Crown lands. They've got the Maori lands are gone. The Maori lands are gone. Some of them, and they've made negotiations, but they're trying to get their hands on the Crown lands now.
So all the Māori land returns that they did, all the Waitangi Tribunal Māori land returns, could very well have gone out to anyone who wasn't of New Zealand.
That's where the corporation started. They went into the corporation, of which a few leaders are privy to, and we don't know who they are because they don't even need to be hereditary, because they've changed it to be absolute leaders and true leaders. So we don't even know if they're born to New Zealand. They might have just, we don't really know. It's all hidden. But I want to show you, okay, let's go on to this. I want to go to now we're going to go back, because now we've recognised the different vocabulary that they've used for us people: subject, Pākehā, hereditary chief and heads, changed to absolute leaders, right? You've got that. Now we're going to go and look at the territory that has been changed. All right, so if you go to number 1, and it says here, the heads of tribes of the northern parts of New Zealand being assembled at Waitangi in the Bay of Islands on this 28th day of October. So that is clearly says northern parts, and we know that Hongi Hika were all in the Hokianga and that of Waitangi in the Bay of Islands, because there were other tribes and other things, but we won't talk about. Here in the new one, it says northern parts of New Zealand, but here it says we're the absolute leaders of New Zealand.
Yeah.
So that is significant, because...
And it says the absolute leaders of New Zealand to the north of Hauraki.
Yes, so...
having assembled in the Bay of Islands. So they're actually extending. Okay.
Well, it's just the way that he has flipped the words around, because ours have got northern parts of New Zealand, and he's flipped it around. We're the absolute leaders of New Zealand to the north of Hauraki.
And he's not saying northern parts, he's actually singling out north of Hauraki Thames.
Well, it's not even that, because he put New Zealand first. The fact that he's put New Zealand first, it sounds like you could even put a full stop there, because he's put those brackets there, which are similar to a full stop. That is significant. And so he's more or less put we're the absolute leaders and tribes, full stop, of New Zealand, full stop.
Full stop.
So this is very significant here. And then you've got to the north of Hauraki, which is different. And then he's put it, have assembled in the Bay of Islands, Tokerau. Now, I've asked someone what this means, because here it's just got Bay of Islands, because here it's, now this is significant.
Bay of Islands, Tokerau means that the Māori name for that area is Tokerau.
Yes, but what is significant is that a lot of people don't realise that the Waitangi area was treated as the first kind of legal court grounds of New Zealand. That was where all the chiefs went to meet to make their decisions. And so that was actually like a courthouse, a legal place. And so it says here, assembled at Waitangi. And it's very significant because he's removed the word Waitangi, which is very suspicious to me. Because
Waitangi doesn't fall under Te Tai Tokerau.
Oh, really?
No, Waitangi is encompassed in Te Tai Tokerau. So you've got, like in the North Island, you've got Hauraki Waikato, Waiariki, which is Hastings, Napier area. Then you've got Te Tai Hauauru, sorry if I pronounced that wrong. And then you've got Rāwhiti, which is down the bottom, Ikaroa Rāwhiti, down the bottom by Wellington. So they're the 5 main areas of the North Island. So when they say on that form it says Tokerau, it's actually Te Tai Tokerau, which is the top of the North Island heading up from as far as just past Auckland all the way up.
And does it include Waitangi?
Waitangi is incorporated in there, just like Wellsford, Orewa, Whangarei. Te Tai Tokerau is that whole area.
But the point is that this, because usually they go to the Waitangi and that's where important documents are signed and that's where Parliament goes. And this was similar to a Maori Parliament. I was looking for the word. It was similar to the Aboriginal Parliament. And I'm just saying that this document here could have been created anywhere.
Definitely, because they're not saying it was created at Waitangi like it was in the original.
What I'm saying to all of you is that it isn't a translation. I'm saying to all of you that it is a brand new document and newly signed, a completely different document.
Yes.
And newly signed.
The easiest way to understand this right now for me, because I've never understood this, but I'm really getting it today. This is like Coke and Pepsi.
Yes.
Coca-Cola had their formula. Pepsi have come along and created their formula from Coca-Cola's formula.
Yeah.
And they are 2 completely different documents.
Yeah, and the Pepsi totally took over. Yes. Very good analogy. That is true. And so,
because Pepsi totally took over Coca-Cola, and that's what this He Whakaputanga declaration by Henare is fully taking over from the first 2, if you want to say, because there was the Māori version translated by the missionaries to give us the Busby one, and now we've got this one.
Yeah.
So yes, in actual fact, you could clearly say we have had 3 declarations of independence.
Yes.
One in our native tongue, one in the tongue of missionary, and now a third in the tongue of Māori, again through Dr. Manuka Henare's version.
Yeah.
And that third one has now become like an overviewed version of the first 2 with a whole different influence and meaning. If you really look at it, you can see there is a different meaning behind this third one that actually takes away the power of us, the
people.
natives of
Yeah,
this land, the
it
people of this land.
it has totally usurped all your power, and that's why we've got all these New Zealand Maori running around saying, why don't we have any power? We should have power, and they're blaming the Pākehā, but I'm saying it's not our fault. It's because of this document.
This document wasn't created by Pākehā. I'm just putting that out there right now.
Yeah, and
I'm just saying it. I'm saying it real clear. This document was redesigned, re-edited, and recreated by Dr. Manuka Henare.
yeah, and
then
then
he is a native of this country.
Yes, and then so you see that he said being assembled at the Bay of Islands. So then we'll go down. We'll come back up there and look at that again in a minute. But we're just looking at the areas, and then he said declared. This one says. Okay, I'll leave that, but all right, go down to number 2, and it says all sovereign power and authority within the territories of United Tribes New Zealand, which he just described to the northern parts. This one is saying the sovereignty and kingship and the mana from the land of the Confederation of New Zealand. So he's taken out the word within New Zealand that was described he's taken out the word territories, and he's taken out within the territories of New Zealand, and he's just put New Zealand.
He's also done something, Ruth. He's declaring to belong solely to the true leaders.
Yes, and
he's declaring it to belong to the
solely to the true leaders. He's taken out the collective capacity.
He's taken out to the entirely and exclusively the hereditary chiefs and heads of tribes and their collective capacity.
Yes, that is very, very, very significant. And then and then you see on the top, the first one, it says we declare the independence of our country, which is hereby constituted and declared an independent state, because we had previously been a state of Australia. But he's changed it on the number 1 on Hanare's. He says, we declare the authority and leadership of our country, and he's taken out independence. Why would he do that?
Because he's already sold us down the river.
Yeah, he fucking has. Yeah. Fucking did.
I'm just saying
Sorry for swearing, but he has.
Let us see, when you're looking at these 2 documents, he sold us down the river.
He has removed the independence of your country and just put in, we declare the authority and leadership of our country. And who are the leaders? And we declare them to be a prosperous economy and a chiefly country. But the other one speaks in legal terms, because it says we are independent and we are constituted as an independent state. And he's removed that. Now that is really significant for your people.
Under the first one, we're an independent country.
And constituted.
Independent state, yes. So we're independent.
Yeah.
We're constituted.
Yeah.
And we've declared it to be an independent state.
Yeah, and he's removed all of that.
And it's under the designation of the United Tribes of New Zealand. Under his one, it's under the title of Te Wakaminenga o Ngā Hapu o Nutareni, the Sacred Confederation of Tribes of New Zealand.
Yes.
So no longer United, Confederation.
Yeah. But the significant thing is that he removed the words independence of our country and constituted and independent state.
Yeah, we've no longer got independence. We've now just to declare authority and leadership of our country.
Of these absolute leaders that we don't know who they are.
And we declare them to be the prosperous economy and chiefly country. Really?
I don't think the chiefs would have written that. They weren't that fucking stupid.
Oh, well, okay, let's just say it. for what it is. If this document was written in 1975 to 1986, somewhere in that period, how many chiefs were privy to the re-editing and amending of this declaration at the time that Manuka Hemari did it?
This was done at the University of Auckland.
There we go. So they weren't privy and they weren't even present.
Well, there would have been some. I mean, I'm sure there would have been some there.
Well, there are 35 that were dropped, Kate. So
yes, there were.
Portion.
Yes, there were. And
let's not forget those 35 that were dropped, just eliminated, erased. There's over a third of the chiefs were cut out of a decision.
But we can't be sure because some of those descendants of those 35 are probably involved with all this scam. So let's go to number 2. On number 2, this is significant, number 2, because it says exclusively in the hereditary chiefs in their collective capacity who also declare that they will not permit any, now listen carefully, they will not permit any legislative authority separate from themselves in their collective capacity to exist, nor any function of government to be exercised within the said territories, unless by persons appointed by them. And he's changed it, and you'll see here that on the Busby version, he's used legislative authority. But he's just said, we declare to belong solely to the true leaders of our gatherings. See, they're not using legal terms here.
So he's got gatherings, and he's saying he will also declare that we will not allow any other group to frame laws.
But frame laws
is not legal terminology.
No, it isn't. And this is saying that nor any governorship to be established in the lands unless by persons appointed by us to carry out the laws we have enacted in our assembly at Huihuinga. Hey?
But what laws are they? And remembering that it's to be established in the lands of the Confederation, not of the United.
Yes. And
it's
also,
it's not the United Tribes, it's the Confederation.
Yes.
There's a difference.
And he is saying that they will frame the laws themselves, and that they will appoint people to carry out those laws, and that we have at our assembly. But if you look on Busby version, he says we will not allow any function of government to be exercised within the said territories unless by a persons appointed by them and acting under the authority of laws regularly enacted by them in Congress. This means on the Parliament grounds of Waitangi, and he has removed that. He's removed that, so that is important because it means that they're going to be making laws for you Maori and for us Anglo people that are not going to be created in any congressional setting or any parliamentary, just absolute laws is what. This is a dictatorship. It's called the dictator law.
Yeah, which means we are not going to have the power to consider, overturn or to block it because we're not going to have knowledge of it until it happens. Which is exactly what this government is doing now.
Yes. Well, it's being done because the Maori, that I'm told that they've agreed on a 50% governance, and everything that they want to do that's dodgy, they go through the Maori, through this version, and everything that they need to do that's got to be legal because of international things, they go through the Anglo people that's backed up by the British law. So they're flipping and flopping between the two places.
Okay, so the wet fish that's flipping and flopping, let's just get it into perspective. Right now, we have a Declaration of Independence that is hanging us out to dry. It is literally hanging ask the natives of this country out to dry right in front of us, right under our very noses. So unless you start, you who are of Maori descent who are listening to this video, unless you're about to do what I'm about to do, which is to continue to identify the key words in these two documents that are killing our country, and unless you're prepared to do something about it, then we are going to go down the slippery, slidey hill, and no one's going to care, because this country is being built on a pack of lies, and our government are taking the Maori in this country to use them as the catalyst to destroy it.
And ultimately, you're in a dictatorship, and you have been for many decades now due to this. Now, it says on number 3 that we will meet in the autumn of each year for the purpose of framing laws for the dispensation of justice, the preservation of peace and good order. This comes from the 1688, the peace and good order, and the regulation of trade. And they cordially invite the southern tribes to lay aside their private animosities and to consult the safety and welfare of our common country by joining the Confederation of the United. They do use Confederation, but it's Confederation of United Tribes.
Exactly, it's of the United Tribes.
Yes.
What they're saying,
and all tribes are included, and all heads are included, and all hereditary people are included. It was the beginnings of a government. It actually was.
It was.
Yes, but...
And it clearly states that there, but it doesn't state that in the other
Here
one.
it says, we agree to a formal gathering at Waitangi, which formal gathering is very different to the word Congress. Congress at Waitangi means it's a parliamentary meeting.
A celebration.
A formal gathering is just having a party.
Exactly.
And he says of each year to enact laws. But this one says for the purpose of framing the laws here. And that justice may be done so that peace may prevail and wrongdoing cease and trade be fair, which is a little bit like that. We invite the southern tribes to set aside that's kind of a little bit similar, except that they've used Confederation of New Zealand, but here we've used Confederation of United Tribes. Here he's changed tribes for all of New Zealand. So this is where it's doing the dictator over all the New Zealand people. So this matters to the Anglo people as well. Because in this sentence he's saying over New Zealand. He's not saying over the tribes. And in the 4th one, he's that I told you we agree, come to trade, ask the king as the protector in our inexperienced statehood, lest our authority and leadership be ended. But here is...
But they also say at number 4, he begins with, and Busby begins with, he agrees to send a copy of the declaration to His Majesty of the King of England. Whereas in Manuka's one, Hinari's, he says we agree that a copy of our declaration should be written and sent to the king.
Oh,
so he's not saying
and look, and he says, and we agree that a copy of our declaration should be written
and sent.
But
that's what I'm saying. So
here, Busby's saying it's already done.
Yeah, he's saying we should, but in the original one, they're saying they also agreed to send a copy of the declaration. So they're saying we're sending one to the Majesty, the King of England, because we want him to know this is what we've agreed to.
No. He says we're sending a copy of this declaration, and to thank him for his acknowledgement of their flag. But this one is saying for our appreciation and for his approval of our flag. Now, I just want to tell you something. King, if you go and look here at King, K-I-N-G, Google King. Just Google King and then Google meaning on it, King meaning. And if you go and have a look, the word king can mean a male ruler of an independent state, especially one who inherits the position by birth, but it also can mean a chess piece, and it can even mean a rock group. It can have many, many, many meanings, not only the meaning of a ruler. It can mean sovereign monarch, but usually when king is used in any legal documents, they always use His Majesty. They never just write king, because it is the word majesty. If you Google, it is the word majesty that holds. Hang on, I'll put in their meaning. It is the word majesty that holds the royal power. And
it's the monarch.
Yeah, the word majesty comes from the sovereign, and we are the sovereign. And so we give her our sovereign, and she protects us with all of her laws through our permission.
It's the sovereign power, dignity, or grandeur.
So whenever they use the word queen or king, they always say His Majesty King of England or Her Majesty Queen of England and Northern Ireland. So that's
because it's supreme authority or power. That's what majesty means.
Yes, and so
He's taken that out.
Yes, He has, and then He's also put approval of our flag. And I'm thinking there's a king somewhere that we don't know who it is, and He's given Himself absolute rulership, and He's given Himself absolute kingship over all of New Zealand. And I'm saying that this flag is the 8-pointer flag. And I'm saying that this is where the 8-pointer flag, that they've sent this flag for the approval to this king of who we don't know who it is. Is not necessarily His Majesty the King of England. It could be any King of England, a King of England that was created in the year 1975 for the approval of our flag, and that's why they're flying a false flag.
Yes.
So that's where I'm thinking that this flag has come in. So if you go ahead, and it does even go on to say, agreed to unanimously on the 28th day of October 1835 in the presence of His Britannic Majesty's resident. And that has all been removed.
Yeah, so they've taken the sacred dates, the assembly of where it was.
Yes.
They've taken out the majesty, the supreme power.
Yes.
They've taken out the United Tribes to incorporate all tribes.
Yes.
I mean, this is just a farce.
It is a farce. Yes, it's a farce. That is exactly the correct word. It is a farce. And not only that, you'll notice when they do, I'll show you later if we do another video of the treaty, I don't know if you have time, but what you'll notice is that
let's just finish with this, because this is really important. This is so important for people to understand why not only should they know. Okay, I'm just going to quickly overview. Not only should you know the very subtle changes of words in both of these documents that take it from being an authentic treaty of past history to a newly designed, rewritten treaty with a completely different meaning and of no protection for us, the natives, that just that alone should empower you not only to understand these two documents that we're talking about today, but also to understand why Kate's been going on religiously about the Bill of Rights 1688, which we're not going to talk about today, but which is vitally important for the protection of us all.
Yes, well, not really us all, but for the protection of your country and the borders of your country. But but it is through this, well, it is protection of us all too, yeah, actually. Yes, you're correct. Sorry, my mistake. It is protection of us all and the borders of your country, both of us actually, and the border of the country as well. But the key point is that we want Australia and England and Scotland to realise that this is where the corporation began, because
And Ireland.
in,
And Ireland.
in Ireland, yeah, we want you all to know that this is where this corporation began. They were basically removed the Majesty's protections with this translation, and when they did that, it has affected the whole Commonwealth. Affects the whole Commonwealth. It doesn't affect only New Zealand, because since all the Commonwealth went under, just like all the Europeans went under the 1688, the New Zealand Maori were adopted by the Majesty as natural born subjects. And then all the natives in all those countries then came under the New Zealand Maori. And if the New Zealand Maori leave that, the whole Commonwealth topples down. And they've put all of the natives in these countries into the United Nations. But we are in a limbo, because all of the Anglo people and their crown properties have also been placed on the United Nations, and we are in between worlds, where they're using the two worlds. And I'll show you in later document, but it all started here. So this is where it started. So I just wanted to tell you this, Kim.
Yes.
You'll see on number 1 where it says 28th of October 1835.
Yes.
Whenever they write these documents, they'll begin it, and then where they end it, they'll put the same thing. And you'll see here that they've put 1835 down the bottom on the Busby version, but they have not put that on the Hanari version.
I noticed that.
Yes.
I noticed that. It's at the top in the first point, but it's not at the bottom in his codicil. Whereas on the Declaration of Busby's, it's at the top in the first, and it's at the bottom in number 4.
Yeah, and so that clarifies that the first one, and then it shows that all of this was written on the same day. All of this was done on the same day, but on this one, they might have what they have to do in law is they carried over the 1835 from number 1, but then the other 3 portions could have been written at any time. And so they get because they have to transfer one document to the other, so they've done that through the first one and not through the other 3, where they've just written what they wanted and made themselves the owners of all of New Zealand. And it is significant that they have this codicil, and they've removed, see, even in the Maori version, they've removed, in the Maori version, they have put that date down the bottom, but the codicil is added. And I'm sure that the reference to the British residents and all of that, that's not been put in his codicil. We the king. All right, so there's the presence of the British Majesty's residence that has been removed, but I think that it is in the Maori version here, where it says Rina Niti o Te Kingi o Ingarani. So I think that he's removed some of that. So anyway, there's a lot to see there. So do you have any more comments on this?
No, my comment is it's so clear to me when you go 1 for 1, 2 for 2, 3 for 3, 4 for 4, and compare each paragraph under 2 different and declarations, how clearly you have been led into false security and why they're using this. This explains so much as to why they're doing what they're doing right now. Because in this country, we've been sold down the river by our own people, our own leaders. And the sooner people realise this, the better.
And
This isn't make-believe. This is factual. Look it up for yourself. I didn't create it. Kate didn't create it. This is history. We are looking at what they have done to screw the natives of this country over and use them in such a way as that they don't even realise they're slitting the throats of their own.
Yes, and it's just they're putting themselves. Well, the problem is that whenever they're talking, whenever the tribes are talking, or even when they're using these documents, we don't know which one they're talking about. And so I always call it the Busby version and the Hanari version. Whenever anyone speaks to me about this, or whenever I see it in a court document, I'm always asking which version, Busby or Hanari. Now, they do pull a little sneaky, because when it suits them, they say the Declaration of Independence is not recognised as a legal document. But when they're making negotiations down at the Waitangi Tribunal of land courts and everything, they do use it. And then they say, oh, the Hanari version is not recognised as the official version. But then the United Nations says they only recognise the language of the natives. And they say they don't recognise the English text. But how can the United Nations function in the Maori version? It has to be translated to function within their organisation, right? So obviously they're going to go to the Hanari translation. So they reckon it's a sneaky use of word by the United Nations, because in 1 minute they say, we don't recognise the English text, we only recognise the native text, right? But then when they want to write their documents at the United Nations in regards to Indigenous rights, they say, oh, we're not going to recognise that English text, we only recognise the Maori text, but then they can't read it and they can't use it in their documents in its Maori form, can they?
No.
So then they go down and they use Hanari's text. And then when you try to battle them about that, then they say, oh, we only recognise the Maori text. It's just I've lost my words, Ken. But anyway, it's sneaky.
What's happened is, it's like anything. In translation, they talk about lost in translation. This is a classic example of lost in translation. We have 3 declarations of independence. The original, which was done in Māori, and then that was interpreted by the missionaries into English. From there, a lot of decades, centuries later, it was then updated by Dr. Manuka Henare, who has water versioned that down to a new version and a new interpretation of how things will move forward. But in that interpretation, we have lost the protection of our land and of our own status within this country. But not only does it affect us, it affects all these other countries, the United Kingdom, Scotland, Ireland, Australia. Their natives, their Aboriginal natives, are at loss as well. If we do not correct this wrong, they will fall under the UN as well, because they won't even have a choice. The only people that have a choice here right now are the natives of New Zealand, are the the people who were sworn in Busby's one to, be under the protection of.
Right, I'm going to show you something, what has come as a result of this. Right, we finished there, right? And what I'm saying is that America sneakily has transferred you from the Majesty into the United Nations. And I'm going to show you clearly how they've done that. So we did become a corporation. Oh, I think I'll tell you that in the next. All right, I'm going to stop this video, and if you want to, I'm going to go on to do the treaty.
So let's stop this video. It's been lovely talking with you, Kate. Thank you so much. And, just to everyone that's listening, when I make a comment and say something here on this video today, it is my personal opinion. It's in my opinion. It's not based on factual, truth of hearing it from someone else. It's my personal interpretation and opinion and view of what I'm seeing. And I'm asking you who are listening and who want to have a look at this and do the same comparisons I'm doing, please get back to us. Let us know what your thoughts are. Let us know what you've found or what you think or how this feels for you. Because right now I'm sitting here thinking, oh my God, I did not realize the enormity of what is happening right now. I knew it was bad, but this is like, we really need to sort this out. So thank you, Kate. Thank you very much for your informed knowledge. As always, been enlightening.
All right, lovely video, Kim. We're going to be coming back next with the Treaty of Waitangi, and we're going to show you even more how the corporation was created in all the Commonwealth. So we'll finish up with that, but make sure all you other countries keep up to speed with what we're doing here.